female lawyers is one of the key things that is happening. You are most welcome, women in law across the globe. We are so happy and honored to have this conversation with you. And just for emphasis, the Female Lawyers Network is voluntary. It is basically free service by us, the coordinators. We simply come together to ensure that we have a common platform where we have a conversation on all aspects that affect us. Currently, and we strongly believe that the Women in Law agenda is a collaboration of efforts from many voices and platforms. We believe that if we work together as female lawyers, we can grow one another, we can motivate one another, we can encourage one another. And the vision of the Female Lawyers Network is to provide that platform for female lawyers across age groups and sectors to network. We believe networking is timely, it is seasonal, and we believe this is the appropriate time for us to network. There is no better time than this for us to meet, learn, grow, develop, and inspire one another. And our mission is to develop excellent, empowered, knowledgeable, ethical, skilled, and yet confident women in law. Our values are quite many. We regularly share them. We believe in professionalism. We believe in integrity, honesty. We believe in being very resourceful, but most importantly, in encouraging one another to reach another level, but not pulling down one another. So ladies, allow me this afternoon to welcome our distinguished guest. This afternoon, we have our chief guest as Miss Sylvia Mbabazi. She's a child and domestic violence attorney in Florida, United States of America. Sylvia is an enrolled advocate of the High Court of Uganda, and she's also a member of the Ugandan Law Society and East African Law Society. She holds a master's degree in law in international law and human rights from Coventry University in United Kingdom. Sylvia has worked with the International Criminal Court in Hague under the Office of the Public Defense Counsel. And allow me to also mention that she's an enlisted defense counsel in the ICC. Sylvia has previously worked as a moot judge who presided over the prestigious Jessup moot competitions in Washington, D.C. She has also worked in Northumbria, Newcastle University in UK in an exchange program. She's formerly a Law Development Center Kampala lecturer, and she was previously, before relocation to the United States, a head of trial advocacy. She's also a diplomatic legal representative for embassies like Nigeria and Eritrea. And Sylvia is a wife and a mother of 8 beautiful children. I believe you'd agree with me that we don't choose any better person to take us through global connections like Sylvia. She has worked locally in Uganda, but also now working in the international spaces. And for today's conversation, we are strategically looking at how it is important for us to globally connect as female lawyers. So with those few words of introduction, allow me at this moment to welcome our chief speaker, Sylvia Businje Mbabazi. Most welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you, Mrs. Joyce Birimbaso. I really like when other people introduce me because they make you feel like, oh my God, you're that big, but I'm very humbled by that introduction. I'd like to thank the Female Lawyers Network, first of all, for inviting me to make a presentation about global networking and giving you my story, my experience, and sharing. I would like to say this is going to be very simple, and it's a conversation. Like, we're going to discuss very many things that I think are going to help the both of us. So Today, I'm going to be talking about global connections, working within our country, and also looking beyond the borders. Some people may want to know who is Sylvia. I was born and raised in Uganda, where I actually went to school and I attained my first degree in law at Makerere University. Thereafter, of course, went to the Law Development Center and did my diploma in postgraduate studies, that is the bar. I later joined a university in the United Kingdom, Coventry University, which Joyce has already told you about. So I will not go into the details of where I worked and where, because Joyce has done most of that. However, you're going to realize that most of the work I used to do actually used to go side by side. I had the ability to multitask. Sometimes I'll take on more than one job at the same time, like running a law firm, and I'm a lecturer at LDC, doing international work while I'm still running a law firm, or also still working with other organizations. And I have had at least the privilege of traveling to more than 28 countries, work, studied. And this has given me an exposure to globally relate and do a comparative study and carry ideas back home. For me, my intention has always been, wherever I go, my home is the best place, and I repatriate whatever I get there back to my country. I am married, and I'm a mother of 6 boys and 2 girls. I have 8 children, and I have a number of adopted kids. I think about 16 adopted kids who are now, I think, the age of maturity, and I thank God for all that. Yeah, simply that is Sylvia for you. There are things I want all of you people to look at and put at the back of your mind while I'm starting my discussion. When we go to law school, we go to learn the law. Sometimes we zero onto the law and forget everything else about us. Because before we went to law school, we definitely were of a certain level, of a certain interest. There are things we really enjoyed. There are things we cherished. There are things that really anticipated that we could do. So while we are in law school, we tend to lose some of those things. So I need you people to focus. Everybody focus at what is your hobby? Do you have a special skill? And what is your area of specialization? We have the privilege of studying the general laws before we specialize. Joyce, are you still there? Hello? Before we specialize.
Sylvia, I'm there.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. We have we do general laws, but as we advance to our master's and PhD, we tend to specialize in certain areas and certain subjects. So personally, maybe I can tell you about my hobby is, for people who know me, is public relations. I like to relate. I like to relate with people. And I like entertainment. I like to entertain, and I like to be entertained. And that is one of the that actually pushes me into intellectual property. Some of you know me for intellectual property, others know me for criminal law, and others know me for family or domestic relations. And others know me for diplomatic works. All these don't make me, I beg your pardon. All these don't make me a jack of all trades, but a person who is diverse. I have a special skill in grant writing. It's amazing. There's a time when I
used to go for training in non-profit accounting, and people thought I was crazy. They say, you're a lawyer, well, why are you training in non-profit accounting? But the exposure I got when I was working with non-governmental organizations required me to have a special skill. And I came up actually and perfected my skill in grant writing, which I will show you that today is one of my breadwinners. When I went to do my master's, I specialized in international law and human rights. So at the back of your mind, think about your hobby, think about your skill and your area of specialization. About my professional experience, I think Joyce has done a really good job to explain to you the things I do. Maybe to remind you right now, I'm a child and domestic violence attorney. We have a group of lawyers we work with here in Orlando and Kissimmee. And I do legal representation for Hands of Hope America. I'm gonna send, like, if anybody who wants a link to all those organizations, the African Leaders Council, where I'm actually the director for East Africa. And then I have the Global Entertainment Network that is based in Nigeria, and I'm the East African representative. I also run a law firm back home, Businje and Company Advocates. So I can imagine the questions are, how does she do all these things? For my previous areas that I used to work, Joyce has explained to you, but I'm gonna be commenting on each one and how each of them actually led me to the next level. It was because of going right from the bottom. I started my career in Foundation for Human Rights Initiative, and I was in the Technical Advisory Services Department. This is where I discovered actually my passion for human rights and international law. And that is one of the reasons actually that pushed me to go and do a master's in that area, and something I have pursued up to today. Yeah, when I came back from the master's, I worked as a program officer in the Public Defender Association of Uganda. I would like to thank at each and every level the people like who really helped me. Take, for example, in Foundation for Human Rights, we had Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana. He was one person actually who encouraged and pushed anybody who was interested in human rights and created opportunities for us. And that is where my passion for human rights came from. And for Public Defender, that is where actually my art of grant writing started. Because as a program officer, I had to write proposals, do fundraising, and that is where I started with Mrs. Flavia Munaba. Then eventually I went to do my master's, of course, and I came back. When I came back, actually, that's when I worked in Public Defender. Then I started working with also the Law Development Center and moved through the ranks. I started as a part-time lecturer, and then eventually I was upgraded to a full-time lecturer, and then eventually a head of subject, head of department of the trial advocacy and MOOTS. And yeah, during that time, we had people like my boss, Othembi, Mr. Othembi Frank, who was very helpful in actually helping us push our career ahead. And that is when the JESAP Moot competition came up. It is funny, the JESAP Moot competition was introduced actually to me by a student. There's a student, she's called actually Angela. She asked me, we have a moot competition, and when we sat with our friends, we thought that you could be a good coach. I started off actually as a coach. So I coached for 3 years, and it's amazing, all the 3 years I was coaching, all my team did was to win We won all the 3 years, and everybody started at least complaining, and everybody pulled up issues like LDCs are bad, you can't compete with universities. But yeah, it was hard work that led us there. Then as a judge there, we actually did very well in the international rounds. We had for the first time Uganda pulling up Africa to the octofinals. This is a World Cup championship of the white and case, where you find everybody coming from different parts of the world, and the final, I think about 100 or 70 law schools compete in Washington, DC. And for the first time, Uganda pulled Africa to the octofinals. And we got an award of the International Bar Association. Yeah. And that is the point where actually I had to step up, and I was taken on as a judge. Actually, I'm still doing the judging up to today. For some of you, sometimes who see the adverts of the International Court, the International Court of Justice, JESAP competition, sometimes they pop up with my picture when they're advertising for judges. I'm still working as a judge there. But we were hit by COVID. There was some instability with COVID where we had to now do it online, and we could never be physically in Washington, DC. In the International Criminal Court, I went to work in the International Criminal Court under the Office of the Public Counsel for Defense. I worked with Mr. Keita, Xavier, and Miss Melinda Taylor. And during that time, we had the cases of Bemba and Katanga. Those are the cases I managed to work on. By the time I got there, that is the time when Ocampo was getting out and Bensouda was coming in. And it was a very, very enriching time because we had an opportunity to liaise with a lady prosecutor, and it was awesome, much as we worked in the defense office. And what did we do in the defense office? We actually protected the rights of the defense, although we also had a duty actually to advise the judges on the excesses actually when it comes to the rights of the defense. I was privileged to be among the team that inducted the Kenyan team. Then when the Kenyan team came to the ICC, the late Monari and actually the present Attorney General, who is Tomo Ogeto. So that also now pushed my career on a different level. I had to now work. Eventually, when I left the ICC, I got consultancies in Kenya, and it pushed me further. So you realize that every one thing leads you to another, and the trail. That's why I said my career is a trail. I don't know if anybody wants to follow into my footsteps. About my diplomatic representation, having done my master's, I did diplomatic relations as one of actually my modules, and that introduced me actually to the diplomatic world, especially the Nigerian High Commission and the Eritrean embassies. However, while I was doing actually the diplomatic representation, I went deeply into intellectual property, which was mainly introduced to me actually by the Nigerians. I'd like to give my tribute to the late Eferi Ozako and Opa Williams. I don't know if any of you knows Night of a Thousand Laughs. They are the ones who introduced. I did a lot of intellectual property, by the way, in Nigeria, more than I did in Uganda. And people used to wonder why I used to go to Nigeria a lot. So while I was doing the embassy work, I would also do the intellectual property work, which introduced me to the global entertainment as one of the representatives of East Africa. Leaving that aside, all the things I did sort of pushed me either further or introduced me to a person. I'd like all of you to pay attention to my prayer. There's a prayer I made when I was in my secondary school. I want to tell you, probably I don't remember being in any first world school. But wherever I was sure I could make it in life. I made a prayer and said, God, if you make me a lawyer, I am going to travel the world and I'm going to make sure I always provide pro bono work for the less privileged people. And I don't want to say probably I was the smartest in school, but I turned out to be actually the first student to do law in that school on government scholarship. That at the back of my mind has always humbled me and is one of the reasons probably where I'm at today. So practicing across the borders, opportunities. How does one identify opportunities? How do you know there's an opportunity to practice abroad? It all starts where you are. I will move to my next slide, back and forth. One, we have a demographic coverage. How far is one willing to go? How far do you want to go? Do you want to stay within East Africa? Do you want to go across into the whole of Africa? Do you want to go globally? Do you want to just do Europe? You say, you know, for me, my passion, I think I connect with Europe or I connect with Asia. That's all I want to do. It's up to you, but the sky is the limit for you. So how do you identify these opportunities? We go to the international job market. We have various options on the international job market, depending on your area of interest or area of specialization. You don't have to do anything that I do or anything that another person does. What is your interest? Identify your interest and then look at the international job market. You know, social media is one of the things actually that has helped advertise most of these international opportunities. We have social media, we have organizations that actually advertise these opportunities. We have networks. I believe Joyce puts a lot of opportunities for you people to tap in when they come up. But the way it works in the international job market, somehow one person introduces you to a situation and then that situation introduces you to another, or somebody who is there probably recommends you, but the biggest job market is your search. There's no job market that is going to come and present itself to you. Yourself, you will go out there and find out, if you hear the International Criminal Court, what can I do in the International Criminal Court? Now, one time I found a policeman, actually, this is very interesting. And he was like, you know, I like the International Criminal Court, but I'm not a lawyer. I told him, you know what? It's amazing. International Criminal Court needs investigators, and the investigators come from the police. Even yourself can work in the International Criminal Court. You need to look at the international job market. It is very interesting, believe me, when you start changing rates of, monetary rates, when you're in Uganda, you're going to get shillings. When you're in Europe, you're going to get euros, you're going to get dollar in the US, and maybe the pound in the UK. And the most interesting aspect here is when you bring back this money, I believe in repatriating back my profits. You know, our value, like a dollar is about $370, $3,700 Uganda shillings. So you can imagine just $1, how much it can give you in Uganda shillings. Anyway, the job market is your search. I don't know whether you expected me to direct you to a certain place that, you know, this is where you're going to find it. Believe me, the job market now is very open. You can find out. And if you know somebody who is placed somewhere, don't be shy. Walk to this person. Go to Julia, like Justice Julia Septinde. We worked with her. By then, when I was in the ICC, she was in the Special Court of Sierra Leone, but she's now in the ICJ. Go to her, contact her, look for her and say, I want to work with the ICJ. What does it take for me to work with the ICJ? Go find out from people. Do not be shy to ask. The worst answer you can get is a no. And at least you'd have tried. It's also another important aspect is what are the requirements to practice law? Somebody normally asks, somehow people always ask me, what are the requirements to practice law in other countries or in some countries? Believe me, each country has its own requirements. Like Uganda has its own requirements to practice law. You cannot come from England and walk into our courts and start practicing law. I will not speak for very many countries, but at least I know what happens in my country. Here in the US, you first of all they have to weigh your degree. If it doesn't weigh to the standards of what they expect here, you may have to go back and enroll into law school, and then you do the bar. Now, each state here has a particular bar. The Florida bar and other states have their bars. So when you're going to practice, even if you study in Florida and you're going to move to another state, you may have to sit the exam of the bar in that particular state. However, we have some states that have a uniform exam, uniform bar exam, where when you do like one bar in like California, in another state, there's a group of states that it merged with that you may not have to do the bar in that area. But that doesn't mean that you cannot practice if you don't go to court. There are very many things actually you can do as long as you have a work permit. You need to get a work permit for you to practice, especially in the US. UK has its own requirements. So you have to get a work permit, and you can go ahead and do your legal work. However, the best shortcut is you transform. If you're going to be here, you're going to do the bar. You're required to do the bar in Florida. So what are the potential risks? There's an issue about potential risks and threats. These, of course, are everywhere in our career as women. But first of all, it's very important that we avoid these risks. How do we avoid these risks? First of all, by having preparation. If you prepare yourself when you're going to start working globally, it is not like you are working within your country. There are very many things that are going to come your way. Preparation and choices in your career are very important. Like I ended up doing aspects of international law and human rights because I have a master's in international law and human rights. So that means when I was choosing a subject, that was at the back of my mind, and deciding to specialize in that area. So whatever you choose to specialize in is going to prepare you in what you're going to do. But that does not mean you do not diversify. Like I told you, that I have an element of intellectual property, I have an element of criminal litigation, and I have an element of family or domestic relations. So you can diversify, but whatever you're going to do in preparation, your choice and your specialty, choice of subject and specialty is going to determine what you're going to do. It's also important choosing the right relationships. Who supports the relationships that are going to support your career growth? I must acknowledge Mr. Mohammed Mbabazi, who is my husband, and I'm very proud to say so. At least for now, he's still my husband. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere unless he leaves me, but I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, this is a gentleman who has actually done his best to push my career, and he has never stood in the way of my career. So if probably I would have married somebody else, I don't know, maybe by now, with all this globetrotting I've been doing, probably the person may not be patient with me. But we have been together, we have had 8 beautiful children, and our work has never been an issue, and my travels have never been an issue. So you should be mindful of the relationships you pick. Make sure this person does not stand in your way. Language is also an important aspect, an important element. There's one thing, I used to see people go to Alliance Française to do French, and I thought it was just a luxury. But believe me, if you're going to work globally, you need a second language. You either need French or Spanish. I actually lost on very many opportunities to work, especially when I was in the ICC, because I could not speak French. And today, I needed Spanish because where I'm working, most people are Hispanic. Here in Florida, if you know, almost about 60% of people in Florida are Hispanic. So that requires me to have a second language. So for those who can take on a second language, believe me, if you want to work globally, you need a second language. For those who can do Arabic, you never know when an opportunity that requires Arabic comes in. It's important to identify a supporting skill. Like I told you, I think my supporting skill is grant writing, and this one has taken me places. Believe me, there's very many organizations, and most of the organizations actually, even that I work with down here, I have done both legal and grant writing. That is my supporting skill. My husband, I think most of you know Uganda Law Library Online, the online law library. We started that one in our house. And today it's one of the biggest libraries, law online libraries. And for him, he's good at IT. And for me, I do grant writing. I do fundraisings, I do grant writing. And most people, at least who know me, can tell you I've been doing a lot of fundraisings and helping out with fundraising, to the point that some people think I'm in the wrong profession. I've had people tell me, Sylvia can sell you rotten tomatoes. But that is my skill. So as a lawyer, you need a supporting skill. As a lawyer, it will not kill you to actually to be a very good accountant. So you need a supporting skill as a lawyer if you're going to work globally, because you'll definitely need that skill at one point. Then never ignore your hobby, the hobbies, When you have a hobby, think about it. That is what you want. A hobby is something you want, something you wish you can have, or something you wish you can do. For me, my hobby, like I told you, is in public relations and entertaining people and being entertained. And that pushed me to the arm of intellectual property. Probably I couldn't end up as an entertainer, but of course I can do some legal work in intellectual property. And that is something I worked on so hard and introduced even to my son, Norman Babazi. For those who know him, he's one of now the intellectual property lawyers, very good lawyers we have. But it all started in our law firm. So I see myself enjoying myself because I do the things I want, the things I enjoy to do. It's also important to pay attention to the level of flexibility. One, you can be flexible and diverse and do more than one thing. Intellectual property, you do family law practice, and you do criminal. However, you should be mindful of the fact that you cannot be a jack of all trades. You have to find an area where you also know that you are really good and conversant, and very consistent in that area. As women, maybe to close the issue on risks and threats. As women, what are the risks and threats in the global, job market? It depends where you are. In Uganda, we could have a tendency of not taking women seriously, but it all starts with the women, us. The women feel the men always should take the lead. No, we can also equally take the lead. So whenever you present yourself as unsure of your strength as a woman, you're gonna be taken over by the competitive men. Okay, there's something I may have to acknowledge, the fact that our background used to give men more preference in school. That is why you find every 100 lawyers, you're gonna find maybe 20 female lawyers. The number is bigger. Every 100 law firms for the men, you're gonna find only about maybe 5 or 6 law firms for the women. But the whole background began with our traditional culture where the boys used to go to school and the girl child used to stay at home and be prepared and wait to get married. And some of our religions actually even make it worse, where you find they push only the men and the ladies are kept on the side. I'll actually ask Joyce one of these days to invite me again, just specifically to talk to the female Muslim lawyers. We have a lot of challenges actually as female Muslim lawyers, which need to be addressed. That is why we have not come up in very many areas, but we have potential. The threats are, first of all, how to present yourself. Who is going to offer you this job? Are they going to offer you this job because they think you're very intelligent, you can match the competition of men, or are they going to give you this job because you're beautiful? It is how you present yourself. It is you who presents yourself. If you decide to treat yourself as an invitation to treat, it's all up to you. But people respect what brain you have, what work you can put out of there, and there is no way somebody is going to disrespect a woman who is intelligent. They will always respect you, they'll always listen to you. It is what you have to give. Actually, when even it comes to our actual relationships, when men want to date us, they come the first time and they look at your beauty, but that is for the first date. The second date, somebody's gonna want to know what has she got to offer besides her beauty. So it is how you present yourself. We are very qualified. We have very, very educated women. Joyce can attest to that. We have very strong women academically. All we have to do is not to shy away because we are women. Go ahead and knock at every door, and believe me, the sky is the limit. It's up to you. So as women, it's maybe the threat could be presentation and how we are perceived, but at the end of the day, it's you who makes the impression. Somebody was asking me, I remember at one point, how come we've been seeing all these pictures with you, working abroad, and most of the pictures you are the only Black person there. And yeah, and I'd never observed. Even my kids asked me, Mommy, how come you're the only Black person there? So it is because there is a perception about Africans, and with all due respect, when somebody sees an African, they're going to think you're either poor or you're not smart. That is not true. Africa has changed that completely. We are very smart and we are not poor. We are the richest. Actually, we find the gold that is in the US today, the gold that is in England, everything was got from Africa. Africa, we are the best. So the thing is, you have to prove yourself. Presentation is very important. Show them what you have got and be proud of where you come from. As a woman, it's very important to actually just display what you can do, and that is it. From there, the sky is going to be the limit for you. We have an issue of social networks and how do we use the social networks to connect? Social networks are really very good. And today we are here having this conversation because we have a social network that is the Female Lawyers Network that connects us together. So I encourage most people to be part of these social networks. You can start with within your career. You can start with the Law Society, be part of the Law Society, East African Law Society, the IBA, and the Female Lawyers Network. But how you use these social networks is what really counts. Are you going to use them positively or negatively? We have a network called LinkedIn. I think, how are you gonna use it? I know you can get jobs out of the LinkedIn, but it's very, very important how you use the social networks. But believe me, social networks are very, very advantageous in terms of connections. I know people who have seen my contact in either Facebook, and they come to you and they say, we've heard about you and blah, blah, blah. These really help, but it's very important how you use your social networks. You know, your social networks, like social media, can make you and they can destroy you as well. And if you find like most of the countries like the US, they are very sensitive about social networks. You're gonna ask somebody, are you on WhatsApp? And they're like, no. And if you ask them the reason, you will know the reasons why. People are very scared of cyberbullying. So the way you use the social networks is very important, but it's very important to network with those groups. If you can afford, you should attend things like the IBA, the IBA conferences, the East African Law Society conferences, the Uganda Law Society. You meet somebody who introduces you to somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody. Then there was something I needed to talk to you about, profiling your bios. How do you profile your bio to impress somebody? We have a tendency of profiling ourselves with about 50 pages. Somebody has a profile of 50 pages or has, they call it a CV of 50 pages. In the world today, nobody wants to, most people are not patient to read all those 50 pages. Simply define yourself the way you are. Simply define yourself and what you do. And a good profiling should not be more than even 2 pages. Tell them what you can do, give them your background, and it is very important for you to identify with where you come from. People are going to join you because you come from your country, from Uganda, from Africa. People may not care where you have been to, whether you studied in England, whether you've lived in the US, but they would like to identify with your original background. So while you're profiling yourself, it's very important to associate yourself with your background. Be proud of where you come from and try as much as possible to be brief and precise. You don't have to. If somebody really wants to know a detail about the things you do, they will go specific and tell you know, we've seen an element of diplomatic relations in your CV. How far are you in diplomatic relations? Then you can explain to them, you know, I've worked on embassy work, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. But whatever you do, whenever you're profiling yourself, putting your CV out there, try to be as brief as and precise as possible. Don't give a detail, and identify with what you have done, identify with where you have come from. Yeah. There's also another element I'd like you to look at. Never ignore, like we talked about your hobby, never ignore your hobby. Sometimes you say, you know, I'm a lawyer, I'm not supposed to do this. You could be a lawyer, you have limitations professionally, but there are things you like. If you can relate, like I told you, I love public relations, I like entertainment, so I related it to intellectual property. And that is how I slid into intellectual property. You can transform that hobby, which is not purely legal, into something that legal, because you need to enjoy your work. Leave alone the stress. You guys, we go through a lot of stress to go through law school, read all those books, go through all that training, at the end of the day, just to be miserable. You have to do your work and enjoy your work at the same time. One other thing I also encourage you is to do pro bono work. Pro bono work and volunteering, believe me, you has taken me places. It is very funny, when I came from England with a master's degree, actually one of the pro bono services I did was with the Irish Aid. The Irish Aid is the one that introduced me to the public defender, and I ended up becoming the program officer. So pro bono work, even today, has taken me places. Every time there's a service you can give as a lawyer, believe me, you lose nothing, because at the end of the day, we make a lot of money. So if you can give a free service, believe me, you get blessed, and it is going to take you places, and people are going to remember you for the voluntary work you have done. So I think a quarter of everything I've done in life has been pro bono. And I guess it takes me back to my prayer. I don't know whether I made the good prayer when I say that I will identify with the less privileged, but it has taken me places. I don't know whether you're looking at making every little shilling or dollar from the work you do, but sometimes you are there because you are blessed and God has uplifted you in order to help other people, which brings me to the point of always try to give a hand and you shall receive a hand. All of us are here because somebody has given us a hand. And believe me, we need and we owe it to society to give a hand. I think when we say give a hand, Joyce agrees with me here. We can go on and on and on. As believe me, as a lawyer, you have a lot of people that you can really give a hand in both your profession and outside your profession. I remember one time I started something, was Legal League Uganda. I don't know whether most of you remember it, but because of traveling, probably it went back a bit, but I intend to actually revive it. It was basically to give back to society, basically to make sure that we volunteer and also contribute to the less privileged people. It was purely a charitable organization. So if you can come up with such charitable organizations, and I believe Joyce does a lot of charity, she can probably give you a talk about how to help people in your position as being a lawyer. Charity takes you places. Charity will take you to one country to another because you have done something charitable. It's very important as lawyers to pay attention to your emotional being. We lose ourselves in being professional, being the best lawyers, arguing cases, making a lot of money, and we forget about our emotional being. We really have to pay attention to our emotional being, knowing that we are not as strong as we think, especially us women. We are mothers, we have children. We have to take into consideration all those aspects besides doing our work. People depend on us. There are actually people who emotionally depend on us. So don't go out there thinking that you're a lioness, you can do it all. You have to attend. Otherwise, with the global work, you're going to move from one place to another. You're going to meet different people. If you're not careful, it's going to break you down. While you are looking at global networking and working outside home, it's very important to have at least the intention to do a comparative study. Each place you go to has something different. Like I remember when we were at the Law Development Center, we went to the University of Northumbria in the law school, and we saw how things were done differently there. And believe me, we picked a lot of information. I picked a lot of information that I took back to the Law Development Center that I put into practice. So it's very important to have comparative studies while you are in a place. Look at an idea, see whether it's going to fit in our setting back home. see how it's going to work. And people have also come to Uganda to actually pick ideas about how we do things. So comparative studies are one of the things that you're gonna pay attention to when you're globally networking. And we have good practices, we have good people. Yeah, you could choose somebody and say, you know what, in South Africa, I met this person like this, and I think this person, I can emulate this person when I go back to Uganda. So emulate good people and do comparative studies about practices and people. It's one thing. I'll give you an example. Like when you're going to practice in the US, there's total specialization. If you're going to pick a component, it's not like back home where like where you find like one morning you find me going to court doing land in Nabweru. The other day you find me now doing, I have another case of criminal. Another time you find me now drafting contracts. Here you may have to specialize. And when you specialize, you get your art, actually, your art becomes better. If you're going to be an immigration lawyer, what is really here, what sells a lot here is immigration law. Immigration law and family law, believe me, there's a lot of money you can make as a divorce lawyer. You just pick a component, actually. In family law, you pick a component and say divorce. In family law, you can pick a component and say, I'm looking at children and domestic violence. Most people presume when you talk about domestic violence, you're going to have women and children probably in domestic violence or women in domestic violence. Yes, it is true. We look at the women, we look at the children, but it's amazing how the women these days are the ones actually who do the domestic violence. We used to look at them as victims, but in the world today, the men who come up and they are victims of domestic violence. So we also globally, so that who is the main victim here? For us, we look at the child. If their father is going to be violent, their mother is going to be violent. The child is the one who is the vulnerable person here. So I was talking about specialization. You may have to pick a component, otherwise you may end up being a jack of all trades. But I thank the Ugandan system on the way we have been trained. We have an opportunity to be diverse. But at the end of the day, you need to do something and do it right. I will move to family. People ask me, how have you managed? I don't know whether, Joyce, I'm still good with time.
Yes, you're good with time,
okay.
Sylvia.
Okay. Yeah. People have been asking me, why juggle with my family? I first of all thank my husband, still Mr. Mohammed Babazi. He's been very kind to me, and my children have been very kind to me. My 8 children have been very kind to me. There is no way and there is no time they have stood against my kind of work. But how do I do it? I make sure I create time for my family. If I'm not traveling, if I'm not working at home, I create time for my family. And it's about setting your priorities right. To me, for people who know me, my family comes first. Even if I have to give up a job because of my family, I will do it. I make sure my family is actually comfortable before I decide to do a particular job. My relations, of course, I have my immediate family, I have my other family members, my siblings. I try to be in their lives. The beautiful thing is that today you don't have to be physically with a person to connect, but I try as much as possible to find a way of supporting them, even in my absence. And I think I have a good relationship. I have friends and yeah, we keep in touch. We relate. Some of them are in my same career line, and yeah, we keep in touch. And I try as much as possible not to give excuses of being very busy. Sometimes I tell people I don't want to pretend to be very busy. Sometimes you pretend to be very busy and forget what is very important. It's very important to keep your relationships and ties together. Yeah, my children, yeah, like I told you, yeah, they are very, right now I'm with them in the US. And they adjust easily. Wherever you take them, today you throw them, wherever you take them to Chazanga, they will adjust. You take them to Hoima, they'll adjust. There's a way kids adjust. But at least for quite some time, I used to work a lot without them until I decided this time I'm gonna be with them. Businesses, yeah, I have businesses back home. As a lawyer, you always have to get something to do on the side. I do agriculture, I have a school, but as a lawyer, you cannot today just depend on what you get from your law firm or from your legal work, but balancing it is going to be a problem. Honestly speaking, you cannot have 100% like returns. Because I'm here, I'm going to have some deficit like in my law firm. I mean, like, because I'm only relying on the lawyers that I left there. That is one of the challenges probably I can face with my children. I'm not going to be there 100%. There's going to be something because you are not physically present. That is one of the sacrifices you may have to take. With my faith, like I said, I think I need a whole day to talk about my Islamic faith and especially women in the profession. One time I was talking to one of the sheikh and he said that as a woman, you are not supposed to be in leadership. As a Muslim woman, you're not supposed to be in leadership. As a Muslim woman, probably you're not even supposed to be a lawyer. That was his opinion and he's entitled to his opinion. And believe me, if this is what they're going to preach to the Muslim female lawyers, we need to talk. We need to address certain things because even the Quran talks about women like Khadija, like Sarah. Hikmah started with them. The knowledge actually in the Quran started with those women. Even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to consult his wives when it came to knowledge. So we are very powerful people as women. The take home is it's very important that you're consistent. You should also maybe join the legal networks like the ULS, East African Law Society, the IBA, the Female Lawyers Network. Then I always tell people, just do you. I met very many students when I was at LDC. Each time they'd come, they're like, oh my God, this is a suicide mission. They told us, this is so difficult. We're going to die. We're going to do what? LDC, you don't do this, you don't do that. And I told them, calm down. This is just doing legal practice. Whatever you did in your various universities, you're just going to put it into practice. It's not like a do or die. And we have a tendency like, I want to become like Joyce. I want to become like Sylvia. Don't do anybody else. Just do you. Calm down, set your goals, set your vision, set your mission, and do you. Be happy with what you are doing. Don't do things to prove people. Don't do things for the camera. Don't do things thinking anybody's watching, because at the end of the day, you're going to be a very miserable lawyer. You may be rich with a lot of money, but you're very miserable. You have not satisfied your inner person. Listen to your inner person. What does Sylvia want? Because even if you go like before a judge and say, I'm going to present this case, I want to prove to this, that judge also is a human being. That judge has an inner person, and there's something that judge really likes as a person. So start with yourself. Listen to your inner person and try to do what makes you happy, provided that it's right. Sacrifice. For global, if you're going to work within and out of your country, you're going to sacrifice. Like I said, you're not going to have nothing 100%. Neither your business, your relationships, your children. There are sacrifices you'll have to make, provided that you have people who stand with you. You need 2-3 people to stand with you and believe in you. And believe me, the sky is going to be the limit for you. It's very important to also establish a personal relationship with your God. We have very many religions, born again, Christians, Catholic, Protestants, Muslims. Whatever you do, believe me, in this world, it's only God that gives the final stamp. It's only God that gives you the ability to do those things. So as a female lawyer, it's very important to have a personal relationship with your God. Like I said, I hope this presentation actually gives you a connectivity between especially my hobby, my skill, my career, and the vision of what I want it to be. Like, I'll remind you, my hobby, I told you, was intellectual property entertainment, and then public relations. Skill, I've done a lot of grant writing because I have been exposed to non-government organizations and non-profit. They're called actually non-profit here. And the vision is I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to travel the world and help the less privileged people. And I think I have achieved to a certain level. I have a big question to ask. Have you had fun practicing law? Or have you made a lot of money? Some people say, I have made a lot of money. Are you happy with that money? If you're happy with the money and that is what you wanted, that is fine. But you can have both the money and be happy and enjoy yourself and have fun when you're doing your law. One time actually, and I don't think, Joyce, I have told you this. I told somebody, it was Frank, my boss, Ofembe. I told him, me and Joyce have worked together. I'd say, wow, no wonder that is why both of you are always smiling. Yeah, you're always smiling. While in court, while we're lecturing students just at the Law Development Center, we always had a smile. We made life easy. People came to us with problems, but we always made it easy for them. And believe me, that is a take home for me. I request all of you to look beyond yourselves and be a friend. Thank you very much for listening to me. Joyce, back over to you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Sylvia. It has been very insightful and very, very beneficial. I believe, the ladies in participation would agree with me that it was very, very spot on. Today, like I shared earlier on, we are looking at a conversation on how we can secure global connections. How do we work within home and beyond the borders? So for me, the take home is the need for us to have a vision. And this takes us back to the question, how far do you want to go in life? In other words, it all starts with us. It starts with me. How far do I want to go? Do I want to work only in Uganda, or I need to stretch out my wings and impact the East African community, or stretch beyond that to SADC, or probably, reach Europe and USA? So basically, it's more or less a vision aspect of the person that is involved. Then also, I liked that part of identifying your interests and looking at the job market. Ladies, I believe you'd agree with me that this is a season where we should not only look within here, but also look beyond and be able to assess the international market, and the need for us to be very intentional and strategic. I like the aspect of personal branding. We need to ensure that all our social handles are international savvy. Do you have a LinkedIn account? Do you have any other handles that are professional that can enable you access the job market? And also the need to reach out to the persons that are well placed in the global spaces. I like the example that you shared, that you try to reach out to Lady Justice Julia Semptini. That is very, very good, because when we reach out to people, we are able to learn the different strategies they've used to get somewhere. And also the other take home is the need for us to be bold, to be courageous. I've also liked the aspect of us supporting others, but also being willing to receive support, because you cannot go somewhere until you have a hand that is holding you. So for us women in law, we need to come out of our comfort zone and be able to reach out for support. Then Sylvia, you also mentioned the aspect of flexibility. I mean, you've worked in Uganda before, but now you're working in the States, in Florida. So that means that we need to be flexible. After discovering your vision, looking at your hobbies, looking at your interests, then we need to be flexible. Can we relocate or can we work within? It all takes us back to exploiting our potential and the greatness that is within us. I've also liked the aspect of helping others, because you've clearly said, if you help others, then it will be easy for you to be helped. Then you've also mentioned the aspect of supporting skills. Women in law have to build the skills that are actually beyond what we have. For example, if you're interested in joining the global spaces, that means that you need to have all the skills that you need, the digital tech skills. You need to be able to write different proposals. So we need to come out of our comfort zone and reskill, retool, and acquire a lot of knowledge that we all need. I'm also excited about that aspect of polishing our skills and expertise. We need to make an excellent partnership. We share opportunity here. There is another opportunity. Another to global space.
Hello, I'm losing you.
How do we see and get somewhere? Can I strive today as a voice back to show as the female lawyers, threats and risks that you've shared? I believe it's a need for us to our feet, to be on social network, and also interacting with internet. One is asking, how does one?
Hello, I'm losing you.
The other question is need a
Hello.
The other question can't and look at is okay, someone is saying the network is breaking.
Yeah, the network is breaking.
Is the network?
I'm losing you. I can't hear you.
All right. Let me try to sort the network. Is it much clearer now?
Yes, you may have to repeat almost half of the things you said. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was talking about my take home, the risks and the threats in the global job market. And I say there's need for us to change our perspective, our attitude, and also for us to overcome our fears. If you're excellent in Uganda and you really feel you want to try out the global spaces, then you can as well be excellent if you have the right attitude and the right mindset. Then you also hinted on building strong social networks. Of course, that is one of the key issues that we need as the women mentioned about, building our profile, making sure that our profile is very, very good in terms of, do you have a LinkedIn? Is it up to date? Do you have a good portrait? Or you simply put a picture of a selfie where your face cannot easily come out? This is a season for us to be very biased, to have a very good CV. If immediately can you bio to deliver your bio? So for us to compete favorably and be able to take advantage of that, compete excellently, timely, we need to be we need to be planners in to build our profile, to ensure we have relationships that are very supportive to us, so need for to define ourselves and where we go. The things that makes us visionary. Action. Where do we see us? Where do I want to go? Do I want to join? Do I want to join the IC? Do I want? What do you want the vision, the need for us to continuously retool, brand, and be able to take a bold step in accessing these connections? I also like the aspect, Sylvia, where you mentioned pro bono services. Of course, we met when we're doing so much pro bono work, and I like the caption that you say, that pro bono services are opportunities for us, but most importantly, when you give out freely, you get serve others and bless them, and in the long run, the universe will also bless you. So that was my take home from you, Sylvia. And maybe you can address this question in the last 5 minutes, that how does one get a work permit? It's a question in the chat room. Someone is currently in Washington, DC, and is saying, do they need a bar course? The other question is, are there opportunities of scholarships in masters in Florida? And
Joyce, I'm losing you.
how can they be accessed? Maybe you can start with those questions. Sylvia, over to you.
I got the question on scholarships and the one for work permits. I don't know whether there was another one because I lost you.
No, that was the question. Those were the two questions.
Okay, yeah. I'll start with the one for scholarships. There's lots of scholarships actually in Florida. You just have to choose the university. Mainly people know the university in Gainesville, which is the Florida University, but we have very many universities here. And all you have to do, believe me, there's a miracle in Google. Find out the universities in Florida, see your area of specialty, because each university actually has very good courses in particular areas. But most people think it's only UFI that actually exists in Florida. There are a couple of universities. I remember when I went to Coventry University in England, actually I realized that university was actually very good with technology. If I had researched better to find out, it was very good with technologies. So you have to find out how that university, what they offer. And not only in Florida, there are very many universities. Harvard, I have recommended very many people to Harvard, and like we talked about, giving a hand, you receive a hand. While we had students I used to take to Washington, DC for the Jessup Mod competitions, they got connected to people, and then I ended up recommending them, some of them to Georgetown University, Howard University, and Harvard University. And today these kids are working in the World Bank, they are working in big organizations, and somehow these kids came back to me and connected me to other people in bigger places. So when you give a hand, you actually receive a hand. I used to see parents come to LDC just crying and so happy about their kids going into Harvard. I always told these kids, it is possible. And they're like, Miss Sylvia, do you think this can happen? And I'm like, yeah, it can happen. The only answer in life you're going to receive is a no, but you would have tried. That is the worst answer you're going to get, is a no, but you would have tried. So self-confidence is very, very important. You can bear me witness, the students who did the Jessup and ended up in Harvard. Yeah, some of you know them. So there are very many scholarships. Actually, you search, and then if you need recommendations, that's where that's the part where like some of us come in. If you need to be recommended, you need to be supported. Believe me, you go through Joyce, we are willing to help you. We are willing to help you in any university actually in the world, not only even in Florida. We know what to do, and we shall definitely find a way of helping you. Scholarships, that's also very important. We have people, actually, I have a network of people who help with scholarships. There's a person based in Canada, there's a person based in New York, They basically work on scholarships for African students, especially coming from East Africa, because they also come from East Africa. So if you want a scholarship, we'll give you an opportunity, go there. If you get it, fine. If you don't, you would have tried. Yeah, but there's scholarships available. So you can work with Joyce, and we can actually, Joyce, I will introduce those particular people to you in order for you to help other female students who want law students or lawyers who want scholarships. Yeah. Then about work permit depends on what you're going to do and where you're going to work. If you have like a hosting farm here, actually, I forgot to tell you one thing. Not being in another country does not mean you cannot work with them. I remember when I was in Kenya one time, I was with Justice Isaac Leonora in Kenya and Justice Smokin Wanjala. And they told me, Sylvia, we're going to introduce you to a law firm here, which is, there's a law firm, I think, where Justice Isaac started, and you can network with them. And I was like, oh my God, I can't come practice here. I said, no. We can have a global network. And somehow on board, we got some Nigerians, we got somebody from Ghana. And how does that work? You can network with these people in a way that when they have cases, probably they could receive cases in their country that are supposed to be in Uganda. You handle those cases, and you could receive cases that are supposed to be in Nigeria, and they handle, and you work on commission. Whatever case that you do a referral, you work on commission. Actually, I've received cases. Actually, there's a time, actually, the first case I got was, there was a divorce case actually in Kenya, which involved a Nigerian and a Kenyan, and the Nigerian was not comfortable with the counsel. He felt like the person was a bit biased because I think they came from the same tribe with the wife. And eventually I was called in, I was flown in actually to go and fit in and try to protect this person's rights. So we also have now the cross-border practice. You can apply, in East Africa, you can apply for a temporary permit, right, Joyce? You apply for a temporary permit.
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody comes for a particular case, and you get a temporary practicing permit for a particular case. Now, for a work permit, like especially when you're going to come to countries like these ones, first of all, you have a hosting. If you have people you're going to work with, and you have a hosting party, that hosting party works out your work permit. It works out, they work out your work permit. By the time you leave Uganda, you should have come like with your work permit. But if you're in a situation where you end up this way and you don't have a work permit, now that's an immigration case. You go through immigration, depending on your status and what you want to do. And there's procedures there. I can send you a link and you find out how to apply for a work permit. Yeah, but you can definitely get a work permit, but it's best if you come all the way with your work permit, from back home, reassured. It's going to be a little bit challenging for you to come here and start looking for work permit here. And you can also liaise with law firms here. We have law firms here. We have one, Morgan & Morgan, who does injury cases. It's one of the biggest law firms. They are lawyers. Believe me, once you're a lawyer everywhere in the world. The only difference is you cannot practice in certain parts of the world because they have their own requirements to give you the eligibility to practice, to go to court, but you still be a lawyer. So you can actually have a tendency of having like courtesy calls to different law firms. Tell them about your law firm in Uganda. Identify areas. If they're doing immigration and you're doing immigration in Uganda, tell them we do immigration as well. Can we network? So we have those networks so that you have a farm in Kenya, you have a farm in Canada, you have a farm, and you have like a network that whenever you go to visit Canada, you have a law firm that you relate with. So do courtesy calls, courtesy friendships. I mean, like just find a way of, and these people, what's funny, get so excited, Joyce. I don't know whether you know, they get excited when you come from Africa and tell them you want to work with them. I don't know how many Americans are begging me, tell me, Sylvia, please take me back home to Africa. I want to come to Africa. I want to do this in Africa. I tell them about Africa. For me, my second name, I think, is Uganda. I mean, like I identify with where I come from. I have never tried to Americanize or become any other thing. For me, it is Uganda, and Uganda is the best place. And the best thing to do here, come, work, get whatever opportunities you have, collect the money you can get here and take it back home. That is why Indians are very successful. They repatriate all their profits back to India. So we can also repatriate services and knowledge back to our place. yeah, that is what I can say about those two.
Wow, thank you so much,
Mhm.
Sylvia. That was very, very insightful. I believe you've read, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at the comments, but everyone is thanking you for an insightful presentation. Someone mentioned something very good, that it was really amazing listening to your mighty journey. I just wanted to share with you that feedback. Thank you so much for finding time to talk to us and share what it is to globally connect but thrive, excellently execute your work in the global spaces. I just want to thank all the participants. Thank you very much for taking off time and for also investing in yourself. Let me tell you, ladies, one of the key things that is a hindrance to us ladies is the laxity to invest in ourselves. Someone can invest in watching a movie or of Netflix on the phone, but they don't want to invest in such free educative sessions. So I call upon each one of you that this is a season for us to learn, to grow, and invest in ourselves in terms of knowledge acquisition. We can do all those other things, but we also need to invest in ourselves. We can watch the movies, we can enjoy the different channels, but let us get the free knowledge that is coming in. So for those of you who have found time to be here, we are so honored and privileged. We are humbled to host you this evening, and we believe that the next session that is coming up on Friday will also enrich and benefit you. Sylvia, do you have any parting shots in the last 1 minute before we sign out?
Okay, thank you, Joyce. First of all, thank you very much, Joyce, for this initiative. Believe me, you're gonna help very many people through this network. Whoever sat with you to come up with this initiative, we always have a tendency of sitting back and say, you know, we have FIDA, we have the Women's Select Committee, maybe in the Uganda Law Society, but we can build more and more female networks. And I like the way you work alongside all those networks. You work alongside FIDA, you work with the Uganda Law Society Select Committee. I once actually worked with the Uganda Law Society Female Select Committee. Yeah, and it was very enriching. So I thank you very much. And for the members who joined the Female Network, believe me, your opportunities are going to pour like water. Believe me, with a person like Joyce, I know she'll pull anybody to make sure you all run together, you all make it together. So don't miss the opportunity of relating, don't miss the opportunity of sharing. And one thing I really want to remind you, whatever you do, try and give back to society, do voluntary work, do pro bono work. The sky is going to be the limit because God is going to bless you. God is going to bless you, and also the world is going to bless you with their tongue. So, Joyce, I'm very humbled and I appreciate the fact that you invited me. And thank you for looking beyond yourself and being a friend.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, once again. Thank you, participants. Wish you a beautiful weekend. God bless you. And thank you once again. Bye-bye.